But while we're here, I thought it would be appropriate. We are tomorrow announcing and giving all of the Kennedy files. So people have been waiting for decades for this.
President Trump expected to drop the long-awaited Kennedy files today, finally shedding light on the assassination of our country's 35th president. Justice correspondent David Spunt is live in Washington. You're just waiting to get your hands on these documents. What do you expect?
Well, we're expecting it to be a lot, according to the president. He said some 80,000. The release timing, Dana, unclear. The president said he'll be the most transparent in the history of the Oval Office. We'll see what is going to be released when it comes to these files related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy 61 years ago. John Fitzgerald Kennedy murdered in Dallas, Texas in November 1963, setting off a chain of events that changed the future of this country for decades. Lee Harvey Oswald was implicated in the murder, but he too was killed before his story could get out there. While at the Kennedy Center yesterday, named in JFK's honor, the president said he'll release more files related to his predecessor, President Kennedy. Watch.
We have a tremendous amount of paper. You've got a lot of reading. I don't believe we're going to redact anything. I said, just don't redact. You can't redact. Approximately 80,000 pages, so it's a lot of stuff. And you'll make your own determination.
The files have been held for years at the National Archives in Washington during his term. Then President Biden released nearly 13,000 plus documents, many of them internal memos, agent notes, but nothing that unveiled any new major information. The release of the JFK files today comes just weeks after the administration released the Jeffrey Epstein files, thousands to be exact. The only problem there, and a big one, those files were previously released, not a lot of new information there. Critics pounced on the administration for teasing something, then not following through. However, today may be different. And remember, if not all of the people involved in the original investigation are dead. 1963 we're talking about.
My fellow Americans, it's your favorite Kennedy back at my desk. Shinier than a new dime. Anyway, they're dusting off my files. More drama than Marilyn's happy birthday serenade. Now, check your screen. See the pound sign? No clue how you dial that on a rotary, but it's got the spooks spooked. Read fast before it's a comic book. Now I'm off. Tea time with Fidel Castro. His handicap's higher than Havana's humidity. God bless you all.
What the hell was that? I don't know. I'm not sure we should be laughing about this extremely serious topic, but today, ladies and gentlemen, we never know what memes we're going to get. We reach into the grab bag. We have a professional meme maker here on the channel. Shout out to Jerry in the chat. Pretty cool to do JFK giving a address from the Oval Office in the black and white and the old boob tube. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got quite a interesting show today where we're going to do a deep dive with individuals who were present at Kennedy's assassination, who were present inside the administrations that wished to uncover what truly happened to JFK, who may know, well, the secrets that will be unveiled this afternoon. Donald Trump, today, Tuesday, March 18th, 2025, will be releasing 80,000 JFK documents that the federal government has been hoarding, that he was stopped from releasing by the deep state in the first administration. And according to those who have seen the documents or who know of its contents, the contents are so shocking that they'll change the world. We'll see. We'll see. If they deliver them in a plastic binder, I swear to you, I swear, we'll be here for it, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump has also stripped Hunter and Ashley Biden of their Secret Service protection, effective immediately. The Secret Service was not protecting Donald Trump when Trump was shot in the head. The parallels are chilling. We're going to cover all of it today. We have an amazing lineup, the best lineup you could possibly have for a day like today, where we are going to be unearthing some of the darkest secrets of our nation. Roger Stone, who knows the deepest, darkest secrets about the deep state. Ladies and gentlemen, he'll be live on the show, and he'll be answering major questions about what Richard Nixon knew about Kennedy's assassination. The two were close friends, and it was quite an obsession for Richard Nixon. Many argue that this is why Richard Nixon had the Watergate hoax pulled on him. Tim Burchett will be on the show. Our favorite, favorite congressman from Tennessee, and Julie Kelly also to talk about lawfare, the deep state. What a show. What a lineup. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Make sure that as we enter a new era of transparency and American rejuvenation, a golden era, you might call it, of America, that you are ready to seize your opportunities in the golden era with American financing. There's a lot of people who got into high debt over the last couple of years. American financing can help you get out of that debt. Inflation hit super hard, man, especially credit card carrying balances. The interest rates there can be over 20%. This is the kind of stuff that really holds you down. Make sure that you are relieving yourself from that weight on your back. American financing can help. They can help you in 10 minutes. Give you a shot at saving $800 per month and unlocking the equity in your home. Their mortgage consultants are on the line now. Call American Financing today and start feeling that relief. 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219 for AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to unburden ourselves from the lies of, the last 70 years. 1963 was a long time ago. Perhaps you remember the Kennedy assassination if you were alive, even if you were a small child. People who were around back then, they do remember it. Were you one of them? Do you remember it? The reason I'm asking that question is because the past is prologue. History doesn't exactly match, but it certainly does rhyme. And there was a man in the 60s and there was a man in the 2020s. And both of those men ran for president against the establishment. Both of those men were sort of like Hollywood icons and golden boys of America. And both of those men were, lavished and loved by women in the press and the entertainment complexes alike. Both of those men had a vision for this country that was restorative, giving power back to the people and taking that power away from a federal bureaucracy that had stolen the power from the people. JFK gave speeches, man, that sound so much like Donald Trump. It's crazy. I think that the production team is actually going to grab me one. So one thing that we're missing in a packed script today, there's a JFK speech that it rings like a bell. And you know what also rings like a bell? The similarities between the two men's assassination. Donald Trump had an assassin that was so obvious that he was literally crawling around on the rooftop. We don't play this clip enough. That that Matthew Thomas Crooks was literally on the roof, sitting there in full view with the naked eye. Here's camera footage that's being filmed by an old Android, and you can see him wobbling around on the roof with his AR-15. Clear as day. This dude was on his phone talking to someone. We have the photos. He was calling someone. He was communicating with who knows. Dude trained at a Homeland Security gun range. That's interesting. This guy had his entire house sanitized. We've seen nothing from how Matthew Thomas Crooks lived. His parents, when asked, the only time on camera, by the way, his parents live as recluses. They go shopping at 3 a.m. at night. They wear masks and hoods and hats. They cover their faces. And when asked this one time on camera what they think about their son killing people and landing a successful headshot on Donald Trump, which is what happened, Dad said, "I got to go take a piss." That's what the dad said. Super weird. We've never seen any photos of the inside of his room. Never seen his phone. Know nothing about him other than he was in a BlackRock ad. Par for the course, right? We've done everything that we possibly can at this program to uncover the truth about this assassination because it mirrors so chillingly what happened to a Trump before Trump, which is what John F. Kennedy was. The two men would have really gotten along very well, and Donald Trump holds the memory of Kennedy very close. Does this look like a normal crime scene to you? This was less than 24 hours after the president of the United States was hit in the head with a bullet. Does it look normal that the FBI should just be power washing the evidence away? We were up on that rooftop within days. In fact, I'm the only person, I think, that exists online that actually laid down in Matthew Thomas Crooks's blood stain on the roof. You can see what they were power washing off here. You can actually literally see exactly where he was shot, because he was shot and killed on this rooftop. Lee Harvey Oswald, they had to get him a day later, but they were able to get rid of the evidence here. And what I mean by that is literally get rid of the evidence. I filmed this with my cell phone. You can see the blood stain down the roof. And then you can see how close that Matthew Thomas Crooks was to Trump. In fact, things have gotten less sophisticated in a way, because this is a much easier shot than Lee Harvey Oswald had, right? If you believe that. And we'll get to that in just a moment. The reason I'm bringing all of this up, you might say, Benny, we know this, we lived it, is that this is the Kennedy assassination of my era. And we will never forget this day. You will never forget this day. If I say, where were you when Trump was shot? I can tell you exactly where I was. I was dropping my kids off the pool. I was supposed to be with them at the pool, this little community pool. Kick my wife and kids out of the car and go screaming back home. Every producer at this show knows, screaming back home on a Saturday to go live, right? Yeah, we'll never forget it. And we know nothing. Nothing. We've never seen who he was calling. We don't know anything about his apps. We don't know anything about him. He's the only 20-year-old that ever didn't post on social media anything. We know he was a Joe Biden donor. We know he was a Democrat donor. Donated $15 and Act Blue. We know the FBI power washed the roof, get rid of as much evidence as possible. We know that it wasn't a crime scene. When we showed up a week later, Trump's shot in the face. Members of the MAGA movement are killed. We show up a week later and we're able to touch anything we want, do anything we want. We film a whole documentary. What the hell is going on? No yellow tape, nothing. Nothing. I'm telling you, there's more security around Toyotathon than there was around the literal assassination location of President Trump. And we did a whole documentary on it. This is pretty awesome. I'm not sure if you can pop that up. I'm still very proud of it. We're the only people that actually seem to care. And because there was nobody around, we were able to see everything. Of course, we weren't able to see the body. They had already cremated it. Do you know that? Do you know who didn't know that they had already cremated the Trump assassin's body? The coroner. The guy who's supposed to review Matthew Thomas Crooks' body. Is he on psychedelics? Is he on drugs? Does he have a Neuralink in his head? Is he being mind controlled? I don't know. But we sure as hell don't know, because they lit him on fire. Without the coroner's knowledge. Media goes up and asks, hey, where's his body? I don't know. The FBI just torched him. And they got rid of the evidence. And Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are in charge of the FBI. And I expect that there's going to be some real truth-telling that happens in that organization. Now, they've just landed on the beachhead. I'm going to compare this to a battlefield. We are fighting evil. And we're going to get into that evil, what that evil actually is. We're going to talk about what is the deep state exactly. Because it's satanic. It's the darkest evil that there is. It's the absence of God, in fact. These people believe in the continuity of government theory, something that was posited actually by Bill Barr's dad, of all people, one of the original founders of the CIA. The CIA of which John F. Kennedy wanted to get rid of. And we actually do have a clip of Kennedy sounding just like Donald Trump here. It'll send chills down your spine. These people believe that the American Constitution and the American Republic is a joke, that we are tax cattle for their adventures abroad, that we are cannon fodder for their forever wars, and that we should have no say in what's actually happening in their government. If they call it their government, a permanent bureaucracy that sits above the government. That's what they believe. That's their church. That's their religion, these people. Kennedy wanted to get rid of it. Kennedy saw it and said it was the darkest, blackest thing he'd ever seen, and it's time to, and I quote, shatter the CIA to the winds into 1,000 pieces. Listen to JFK here. Tell me, does this sound familiar to you?
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
You just described the deep state. We don't need elections. We select our candidates. We don't need free speech. We censor our enemies. We don't need to send armies in. We'll just kill people in the dark of night. Man, they really did kill these two guys. They tried so hard to get Trump, and they got Kennedy. And we know this. The similarities are stunning between Kennedy and Trump. And the process, the operational process to get rid of them, the playbook, remains the exact same. The threat to the deep state, to the forever extension of power, the permanent bureaucracy, call it what you will. Unified theory of government is the fancy word for it. Deep state is the more nomenclature of this of the plebs way to say it, but whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. These people were threatened by both Donald Trump and JFK. There's a pretty remarkable clip from Tucker Carlson where he explains exactly how this operation happened inside of the CIA. And before we get into the Kennedy assassination itself, I'd like maybe zoom in a little bit on who benefits. You know, who benefits from having Kennedy killed? And I think the cui bono here, the Latin for who benefits, is the most important question. Because when you have a system that is being threatened by Kennedy, and this is the threat, to rid the CIA, not just the top brass of the CIA, but to get rid of the CIA entirely. Kennedy saw what was going on there. Operation Paperclip, the Nazi scientists, the human experimentation, the oppressive hatred of the American people, the dark and warped pagan, satanic ideologies. He said, we got to get rid of it. Tucker Carlson did so much for the Kennedy assassination exposure by mainstreaming, by mainlining this theory into the minds of the American people using the largest show in all of TV. And we don't thank him enough for it. Because Tucker Carlson is the only person who at scale ever asked these questions. He went to the CIA. He said, did you kill Kennedy? And his sources inside the CIA said this.
We decided to find out. We spoke to someone who had access to these still hidden CIA documents, a person who was deeply familiar with what they contain. We asked this person directly, did the CIA have a hand in the murder of John F. Kennedy, an American president? And here's the reply we received verbatim. Quote, "The answer is yes. I believe they were involved. It's a whole different country from what we thought it was. It's all fake." It's hard to imagine a more jarring response than that. Again, this is not a, quote, conspiracy theorist that we spoke to. Not even close. This is someone with direct knowledge of the information that once again is being withheld from the American public. And the answer we received was unequivocal. Yes, the CIA was involved in the assassination of the president.
This means that you have a government within a government. A government that sits atop our elected republic, that has the power to kill at will, that has the power to delete evidence, to power wash the roof. Who has the ability to order Jeffrey Epstein's death in federal prison? Ask yourself that. Who has the ability to do this? You know, since we've lived in this time, and I just want to draw the parallels through and say, wait a second. Let's look at the ties that bind here, to the Kennedy assassination and the Trump assassination. Who remains in power? Who has operational control of these crime scenes, both of them, and has remained as a unified, if not a much larger and more powerful bureaucratic behemoth? Federal law enforcement. Who has the power to spray wash a roof 24 hours after a man landed a bullet successfully into President Trump's head, killing members of his political movement? It's amazing talking to the scientists when you get a situation like this, because these guys are no bullshit. That's why I find it so remarkable that the coroner there in Butler County, Pennsylvania, was like, "Where's his body? I didn't have his body. Where'd it go? Oh, it's been cremated? That's insane. I have the legal right to that body. Why did that happen?" These guys are very ones and zeros, right? It's extremely binary. When we talk about the JFK assassination, what you should look at is the doctors. You should go to the experts, like Dr. Cyril Weich. Dr. Cyril Weich is an American forensic pathologist. He's the president of the American Academy of Forensic Scientists and the American College of Legal Medicine. He headed the board of trustees for the American Board of Legal Medicine. He's a medical examiner for a large metropolitan area in Allegheny County, Pittsburgh metropolitan area. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a man with impeccable credentials. As we were doing research for the show, I just could not believe this clip of this doctor breaking down the theory that holds the entire JFK assassination together. It's called the magic bullet theory. It's the theory that one bullet made 7 wounds, broke 3 bones in 2 men. And it's explained here because we were looking for, we do like 20 hours on this, and you can find 20-hour lectures and documentaries on the assassination of JFK. But I thought this was just, since this is the entire argument of the federal government, that this single bullet killed JFK and wounded Governor Connolly in that car. Is the governor of Texas. The limousine had 2 Secret Service agents in it, Connolly and his wife, First Lady of Texas, and JFK and his wife, Jackie Kennedy. Based on the medical examinations of both bodies, here's what must be assumed, ladies and gentlemen. Let's let Dr. Cyril, one of the most credentialed scientists that you could possibly ask for, explain what the government is asking us to believe from the 1960s. Now, a reminder, we don't know anything about Matthew Thomas Crooks. That happened in the digital age. We have a cell phone. The government has a cell phone. They have his computer. They have his home. They have it was all on camera. Like it was in 4K. It was being broadcast live. So we still know nothing about that. So put that in a box. Here's what the government's asking us to believe about the assassination of JFK. Let's go.
Here is a diagram. It is their diagram, not mine. You can see in the figure to the left, you see the tracheostomy, the curvy linear structure up there in the front of the neck. And then you see over on the right-hand side, the bullet wound. And then on the upper right, the back of the head, you see what was a bullet wound. Here are the wounds in Governor Connally. A wound went into the right posterior axillary area, which means behind the right armpit. Exited, go to the figure on the left, exited below nipple level. Do you remember where Connally was holding that Stetson hat? Here, right? Okay? And then the bullet came out, went into the back of Connally's right distal forearm, figure on the right, back to the figure on the left, emerged then from the volar anterior aspect of the right wrist and re-entered into the left thigh, okay? Now, they soon had a problem, one hell of a problem. They got the alleged murder weapon, the Mannlicher Carcano, considered by every long gun expert to be the most inferior weapon of his genre developed anywhere in the world. And they had one hell of a problem because it was determined that Connally was hit 1.5 seconds after Kennedy had been struck. That Connally was hit 1.5 seconds. How could that be? If the best marksmen take 2.3 seconds from shot to shot, Oswald was never a very skilled marksman. How could he have gotten off a second shot in 1.5 seconds? Time ago, as the magic bullet theory. The magic bullet theory holds that one bullet produced 7 wounds in 2 men. In and out of Kennedy, in and out of Connally's chest, in and out of Connally's wrist, and into Connally's left thigh. I want my 2 volunteers up here. Here is the single bullet theory. A bullet goes into Kennedy's back, and to begin with, it has an upward angle exiting the neck at 11.5 degrees to begin with. Mr. President, were you tying your shoelace? My colleagues say, well, what if the president were bent over, you see, so then you get that. Or maybe you were scratching your groin. Okay? The bullet came out, moving downward, leftward, and forward, comes out here, goes over 18, 20 inches, hits Connally behind the right armpit, moves through the chest, destroys 4 inches of the right fifth rib, exits below nipple level. That's why you see the governor is always a man. Until Sophia Loren comes around. Exits below nipple level. Hold that hat, Governor. Look, they love you. Hold it. So look at the crowd. They love you, Governor. They love you. Remember, you saw where the head was, right? Bullet emerges down here, swings back up and around into the back of the right forearm, exits from the front and into the left thigh. That is the trajectory of the single bullet theory. You like that? Governor, thank you.
I love these old salty doctors. That's it. That's what the government stated, that they are demanding you believe. The government has said that this bullet, this one right here on your screen, this bullet is the one that broke ribs, broke wrists, shot through 2 men, 7 wounds, and ladies and gentlemen, was found totally unscathed. Now, anybody who fires any weapon at all understands that shooting a bullet through a plastic water bottle will distort the bullet. Shooting a bullet through a pillow will distort a bullet. There is no scenario in which a bullet smashes bone and rib and bodies and comes out looking like this. Not true. It's a lie. And you could go down this rabbit hole for so long, and you could go so deep on this thing. But I feel like sometimes it's just easier to simply, like, on its face, take the biggest lie, break that down, and just say, here it is. It's over. It's not real. Whatever they're telling you about JFK, it's not real. But they were able to get this over on people because, well, you didn't have the Zapruder film. You didn't have the autists of the internet. You didn't have the technology that we have today. But when you apply the technology today to the official story that the government's telling you, we don't know who Matthew Thomas Crooks was. Ryan Routh was definitely not working for Ukraine. We promise. When you apply technology that we have today to the facts, you get something very different, especially with Kennedy. Here, ladies and gentlemen, a brand new model of what the government asserts is the official story. The experts told you so, and the experts also told you that COVID came from Chinese people eating bats and pangolins. Here's what they said. They said that this bullet killed Kennedy. It's a lie. It's not the only bullet, by the way. There were multiple people who were shot that day. It wasn't just Kennedy and Connolly. I mean, there were like bystanders. At least 3 bystanders got hit with bullets. There are bullet markings all over the street. There were extra bullets that were found in the vehicle. That place was a kill box, much like what they set up for President Trump. Here's technology that proves it. From the party of Trust the Science, let's go.
They took laser scanners to Dealey Plaza, then brought it back to their computers. And the data they collected from the lasers are tiny points, millions of them, to make a point cloud.
It's a digital twin. It's bringing the field to your computer, you know, the exact replica of whatever you wanted to scan. Everything used to be 2-dimensional, and what you saw on camera may or may not be accurate. Now you can truly analyze it.
They then took the infamous Zapruder film that has the clearest video of when John F. Kennedy was shot and matched it to their point cloud. And everything was matching up perfectly until the Texas governor was shot too, reportedly by the bullet that went through the president first.
What through the evaluation comes to show is that those aren't in line. Governor Conley, his wound is sitting 6 to 10 inches towards the outside of the vehicle. You have to slide Governor Conley to the inside of the vehicle. You have to slide him to the left to get that alignment.
Based on those findings, Stoll says you have to look at a new hypothesis that there was a second bullet. The question, from where? One person with inside knowledge of the government investigation believes there was another bullet too. Sammy the Bull Gravano was questioned by the FBI about this after he became a government informant for the mafia.
I know what it is to kill someone. You don't bounce and come this way. When you bounce and come this way, you got hit in the front with a bullet, another one.
So you think JFK was struck from the front?
It was, you can see it. That went in, and that's from the grassy knoll.
Sammy said he is sure, however, there were no mafiosos on the grassy knoll. Stoll says while their lab doesn't know where the second bullet came from, their technology and visualization is ready for ballistics experts to analyze just that.
What are we going to find out today when they release these documents? Everyone's seen the Zapruder film. Everyone's seen this footage. We have to be... Yeah, okay, all right. Well, my producers are saying that they've cut it or stopped it right when the bullet enters Kennedy's head. But you'll see that his head goes back into the left. Anybody who knows anything about ballistics, physics, forget firearms, just basic physics, will tell you about properties that are in motion, that remain in motion, will tell you about the power the vectors of power passing through stationary objects, how that has a force on those objects, and how the head that is being shot from the back will not jerk in the direction of the bullet. It will follow the energy of the bullet. Kennedy's head goes straight back. Kennedy was shot from the front, from the side, from the front, from the side, from the right, from the grassy knoll. Now, the original witnesses to all of this, they said, man, we've seen like dudes with guns on the grassy knoll. There's like creepy individuals like wearing black that were on the, like that were there at the fence line. You could see the smoke. You could smell the smoke. People saying I got shot. Like there were other people that went to the hospital with bullet wounds that day. The initial reaction to the Kennedy shooting, and there are photos of it, was to immediately run to the grassy knoll. The video cameras and photographers and journalists that were there, that's what they look like. Everybody was facing the direction right there, that ledge. Everybody was facing that direction. It's amazing how the people who were there at Daley Plaza that day, many of them died under very strange circumstances. Many of the firsthand witnesses, died very soon after, along with the lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald. He was a total doofus who did have CIA connections, who had been to Russia and Cuba, was a terrible marksman, using a terrible gun. Like one of the single worst guns available, certainly for accuracy. An Italian-made piece of garbage that, again, could not have fired the rounds within the 1 second interval, as we've been talking about, of which the governor and JFK were shot. Just not possible. It's humanly, physically impossible. So what happens next, ladies and gentlemen? Well, people start to break. The Secret Service agent who allegedly found the magic bullet has changed his story all of a sudden. This happened within the last year. The guy's old. He's in his 90s. His name's Paul Landis. And he says the government's lying. Okay, well, here's a firsthand witness that survived. Here we go.
Investigators determined what's known as the magic bullet theory, that one shooter fired all the shots and one bullet, this one, hit not just the president, but also the governor of Texas in multiple places. Investigators came to the conclusion because the bullet was found on a stretcher for the Texas governor, assuming it had exited his body. But Paul Landis never told his story, that he moved the bullet to a gurney after he found it lodged in the back of the limousine. He didn't want it to get lost.
Yeah, I didn't want that to disappear. It was an important piece of evidence. The unfortunate thing is that I think just with the stress and everything, I have tried to analyze why all the things. I don't have it. I can't really answer. It's you had to be there to know how bad and how stressful and the chaos.
Wait a second. So this pristine bullet that's clearly never been through any human being's body, certainly not shattered bones, this bullet, this is where the entire case rests upon. Everything that the government's telling you, it rests on this piece of evidence that allegedly made 7 bullet holes in 2 men's bodies. This was actually found lodged not in the governor of the state of Texas, but in the back of the limousine? Oh, okay. Got it. Here's the diagram. Here's one example of a diagram of exactly what this bullet did. Let's go ahead and check. Okay, so let's see what the government's trying to tell us here. So it goes through Kennedy's back and throat. You can see the Zapruder film. Kennedy kind of grabbed his chest area. Then it goes here. It breaks a rib. And it shatters his hand. Then it lodges in his thigh. But it did it! because that magic bullet was actually in the back of the limousine, according to the man who found it. Idiots. And now technology has, of course, proved all of this a lie, because there's no way that this bullets travel in ballistics, man. Bullets travel in straight lines until they hit a force strong enough to stop them. Sure, there's slight deviations, but it doesn't go like, bullets don't go like that. Didn't happen. It's all a lie. It's physically only possible to have shot 3 rounds from where Lee Harvey Oswald was shooting. Now, this has been recreated, okay? So I want to, I don't think that it's fruitful to go down that path. So it's physically only possible to chamber and to fire 3 rounds using the caliber and rifle that Lee Harvey Oswald was using. So a 4th bullet, and we know that the first round that was fired there, and I'm not saying that he didn't fire any rounds at all, but there were only 3 shell casings that were found there in this school book depository. So going with the government's official story, the first bullet missed. We know that because it was found. It was found lodged into the cement in the road. First bullet misses. Doesn't hit anyone. So they're left with 2 bullets. This is a government before the internet. This is a government that was able to lie with much greater impunity and protection. And this is where you get the official story of JFK's assassination. So what will we find out today? Who covered it all up? How did they get away with doctoring bodies? That's what Joe Rogan talked about. Who has the power, the same people who have the power to cremate Matthew Thomas Crooks has the power to doctor Kennedy's body. Joe Rogan talking with legendary director, filmmaker, and documentarian Roger Stone. Roger Stone will be joining our show. Oliver Stone, who's done such extensive research on this. And the reality that it wasn't JFK's body and it wasn't JFK's brain that was finally delivered for an official autopsy. The rough sketches that we just showed you with Dr. Cyril, those are the initial sketches done at the Dallas Memorial Hospital. They didn't do a full autopsy there. The government immediately seized the body. And there are confirmed reports from 40 different witnesses that these bodies had been doctored, that there was a massive wound in President Kennedy's, an exit wound in the back of his head from a bullet that was clearly fired from the front. And they realized that this was the existence of another bullet means a conspiracy. The existence of another shooter means a conspiracy. They hadn't accounted for that. So what'd they do? Let's listen to the expert.
The alteration of the autopsy photos and the difference between
the autopsy itself.
Yes, the autopsy itself. The difference between the Dallas autopsy and the way they looked at it at Bethesda, Maryland.
There was no autopsy in Dallas. It was just
the examination of the
It was very
body.
quick. The tracheotomy.
Yeah, the tracheotomy and also the description of the exit wound in his head.
Well, that comes out later.
Yeah.
Although some people didn't see it, but 40 people. What the ARB did, thank God, was collect all the people who saw the rear exit wound, and it was huge. We showed it in the film. We showed the 40 people who saw it.
What's really crazy you document in the film was the fact that it wasn't really his brain. I
was going to go to that.
Yeah, please. The brain that they had used as a piece of evidence that this was Kennedy's brain had clearly been in formaldehyde for at least 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad our documentary, and this is James D. Eugenio who wrote it. He's really the guy who reads everything, remembers everything through all these years, and there's 1 million documents. We drove a stake through the magic bullet. That's clear. There's no chain of custody. The FBI lied. They also, in the matter of the autopsy, the brain is intact. And it was photographed as such. It was a clean. The whole area was still there, whereas it's impossible because the brain was seen. You see it
Yeah.
spraying out in the car during the Zapruder film. You see it. The nurse Audrey Bell is talking about I can't remember the medical term, whatever it's called. It's spilling out on the floor of Parkland.
Yeah.
And when they weigh the brain, as they do in an autopsy, it comes out normal.
What evil are we going to find out today? Like, who are these people? Again, we know what Operation Paperclip is. We know about the Nazi scientists that were brought here to human experimentation. We know that the CIA smuggled them here in order to keep them from falling into the hands of the Soviets or whatever. Maybe they just like that kind of stuff. The CIA has the power to doctor bodies, official autopsies, to recreate brains. Where is all this evidence these days? Oh, you'll be shocked to know that the limousine that JFK was driving in was immediately strip-mined, torched, and melted down within hours of this assassination. Couldn't find it, can't use it. Sorry. That witnesses to all of this have lost their lives in very mysterious circumstances, including a man who was shot in the leg at the exact same time. Again, let's establish the fact pattern here. The existence of one more bullet means conspiracy. That's all you need. One more bullet. That's why everything hinges on this magic bullet, which the Secret Service agent who found it says it's bullshit. I found it in the back, lodged in the back of the car. This is how weak this case is. This is how long they've lied to the American people. They died. This is the damn bullet. I mean, look at this thing. And this is how little it stands up to actual medical scrutiny today. Forensic pathologist looks at the alleged scans of JFK's brain and, let's just say, blows our minds. Let's go.
The official autopsy report places the entry wound about 2.5 centimeters to the right and slightly above the external occipital protuberance, which is the bump in the back of your head, which is represented right here on the x-ray. One of the things that happens when a bullet strikes the skull is it sends off these radiating primary fractures that you can follow back down to the entry point. As the head expands, it causes these concentric heaving fractures that occur perpendicular to the primary fractures. Using this pattern, you can backtrack to the location of the entry wound. Several of the investigative committees that were set up by the government placed the location of the entry wound much higher up on the top of the head. If that were the case, this would be the fracture pattern that we would see. We'd see the primary fracture lines radiating downwards with the concentric fractures circling back up to locate the entry wound at the top of the head. If we compare these two images with President Kennedy's head x-ray, which is down here, you can see these primary fractures going upwards in this direction, telling you that the entry wound is down low. We also have these secondary heaving fractures that occur as the head expands, also pointing to an entry wound that's down low. So if we compare the two possibilities, the autopsy described fracture pattern versus the investigative committee fracture pattern, you can see they're quite different. And if you try to overlay them, you'll see that it matches much more closely.
I love these scientists. Because they're just like, it's very. You can't beat the actual data and the actual evidence. And this is why they hide this stuff with Matthew Thomas Crooks. This is why they hide it. You can't beat the physical evidence. That's why they get rid of it, like this. You can't beat it. You can't win if you have the films. If you can't win if you have the diagrams, if you have the actual autopsies, if you have the actual information, the data. And we have it. We have the evidence. They've lied to us about JFK's assassination. Why did they lie to us? President Trump said that 80,000 documents will be released today, that they will be largely unredacted, and that will be the end of it. The end of it. Now, the one man who's seen these documents already is Donald Trump. Judge Napolitano, speaking to Donald Trump, said that Trump told him that what was inside of these documents was so dark that he wasn't allowed to release it. What will we find out today? Well, there's only one man that I would trust in asking about subject matter like this. There's only one man who we believe would be a truth teller on subjects of this magnitude and weight, and that would be the great congressman who spits absolutely pure fire and honesty about our federal government, Tim Burchett from Tennessee, who joins us live right now. Congressman, what are you expecting today with the release of these files? And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Do you believe the official story about JFK's assassination?
No. I've got one of those Italian carbines. It's called a Mannlicher. It's wooden stock. You could have gone into a Western Auto and bought an M1 carbine with sniper, for a sniper rifle, basically in those days for about, I don't know, $35-40, something like that. But they chose to do a Mannlicher carbine, and that was written up. And I remember we had one. I remember my dad shooting it. It was so rickety, but it was written up in a magazine one time as the only gun that never won a war. And this is how gullible America is. We trust the FBI. We trust the CIA. I trust a lot of the people there because they're patriots, but their bosses are criminals. And that's apparent in this. This was a cover-up of the highest proportions. There's no way in hell Lee Harvey Oswald made those shots. And and everybody knows there's more than one bullet. That bullet, they keep showing that bullet, I've hunted my whole life, and you shoot a .22 rifle in the bullet if you can find it. It's turned into a mushroom. That thing hardly has even any grooves. And then they find it on a gurney in the hospital that I guess somebody's body just ejected it, and it transversed and went this crazy direction. And we believe it. And here's what's going to happen. They're going to release the 70,000 documents, as President Trump said. I don't think they're going to be able to get them all out today. They're going to parse them out. And that's probably a good thing, because some of it, of course, is going to be false information that's in there. Not necessarily placed there false, but information they got that we know later is not truthful. So, one day it'll be this group, another day it'll be that group. And I think it's going to be, it's going to be a long time. And I honestly don't think we'll ever really know who pulled the trigger. I have my suspects, as a lot of people do. But I think that America deserves to know. And anytime, just like, we still don't know much about that little squirrely punk who took a shot at President Trump, of course. Yep. And here we are, and you showed the pictures, and that always ticked me off. I was like, what in the world are they doing washing that crime scene off? I'm in Knox County. I was mayor of Knox County, in our sheriff's department and our local KPD, Knoxville Police Department. There's a crime scene. They'll block it off. The forensic people will come in. I mean, it's days. You don't let any degradation come of the site. They would have had a tarp over the top of it. And what is the FBI doing? They're hosing it off. You don't know the blood. And I've seen pictures of, allegedly, some folks that I may or may not know that took some pictures in the blood train and trail and where it went. And a lot of things can be told by that maybe you and I as civilians wouldn't know. But if you want people to question and have doubts, you immediately go in and do that garbage. Or if you're, as you said, you're trying to cover it up. But if you want the truth to be known, you let it all go out there. And this is, again, it's everything. Every time we start getting close to something, if it's UFOs, if it's RFK, or JFK, it's always national security. We can't release this because of national security. And that is BS. The federal government does not have the right, nor should they, to decide what you and I can handle. And they're arrogant, they're corrupt. It's about power, it's about corruption, everything that Washington, D.C. runs on. And this is a continuation of it.
It's interesting that you brought up this point, because the entire first half of the show, we were talking about the similarities between Matthew Thomas Crooks, Lee Harvey Oswald, between these two shootings, between President Trump and JFK. And the destruction of evidence is one of those big similarities. And they cremated the body. I think they cremate the body without the coroner even knowing in Butler County. Butler County coroner goes, "You did what?" The FBI said, "We set it on fire." And he said, "That's my jurisdiction. I actually have control of that body." And we've seen nothing. Have you seen any? You're a member of Congress. You can subpoena things. You're on some pretty powerful committees. Have you seen an autopsy? Do you even know what that kid was on?
No. And I'll tell you one other thing. I don't read a lot of books outside of the Bible, and I don't read it enough, obviously, because of my chosen profession. But it's called I Heard You Paint Houses, and it's about the guy who allegedly shot Jimmy Hoffa. And I don't know that he really did it or not, but he was close enough. But he had made an interesting statement. He said there's always a patsy who is mentally deficient, and not his exact words, I'm adding that. But you look at all of them. Look at shot Martin Luther King, just an old thug, local criminal, and they caught him in London, England, and this was in '68. RFK, this Saran, and he's allegedly doped up. He doesn't even remember it. Lee Harvey Oswald, loner, Marine, sniper, went to Russia, maybe contacted communists down in Mexico at the Russian embassy. Just all kinds, and whether that's even a legitimate photo right there or not. It's beyond belief, but we accept it because we are trusting people, but not anymore. They have not given us a reason to trust them, and we should question everything. And I don't care who's in the dadgum White House. You finally got Trump in there, and God help him. I hope he stays healthy because he is turning over a lot of stones. And that's why Doge is going to ultimately, I think if it fails, is because of both parties are going to do it in because they're getting too close to home. We're cutting in on somebody's cash cow, and that cash cow is mooing a little too loud right now, and America knows it. And I hope we keep the pressure on all this stuff. Disclosure, don't get distracted. Stay on point. Get this information. Representative Luna, she chairs the committee, and she was kind enough to put me on it. And we're going for all the disclosure we can get. We're going to push it as hard as we can. But when America gives up on it and gets, I used to say when I was in the Knox County Mayor's office, I said, boys, there's going to be another wreck on the interstate tomorrow, and people will get distracted. And so let's keep on point.
So it's very interesting because doing what we do for a living, Congressman, there is no lack of appetite. As much as there are little distractions and, look over here, look over there, man, you're never gonna quell the appetite for information on Epstein, for the truth about JFK, the Trump assassinations, something that is foundational actually for my generation. I wasn't alive for JFK's assassination, but everyone that was living knows where they were when they heard Trump was shot in the head.
Yeah,
everyone, and we are ravenous, starving for information. We've learned nothing. And
that's by design. They would have run the clock out, as I state. Americans want their pizzas in 30 minutes or less, and that's about our dadgum attention span. And I'm guilty of that too. And they'll here's something else over here. Look over here, and then boom, we're off over there.
So President Trump's going to release these files. There's not many people that are still alive. So the only things that are being protected by releasing, that you would want to protect would be institutions, not individuals who were part of this, because they're all dead, right? And there's still a ravenous appetite 70 years later, 60, 70 years later on this, on the JFK assassination.
Yep.
You said that you have your suspicions about who's behind it. Who's behind it?
Well, there's a lot of people that benefit. The mob, LBJ, others. I think it was a combination of some of those, and they got together on it. Enemy of my enemy is my friend. Let's get this guy out of the way. He was talking disclosure. He was compromised himself. I mean, there's question. He had a bad back, so he was probably loaded up. He loved the ladies, and I'm sure he was compromised there. And I just think he was an asset to some wealthy elites until he wasn't. And that's a good lesson for everybody to learn in politics, because they will gut you like a hog as soon as they're done with you. And they were done with him. And I think he was close to dislodging the CIA. And so, there wasn't a cell phone back then. There wasn't, these people could get information and they could talk freely. They talked freely over telephones. And I think there was a combination there, that there was a vacuum, and it allowed several people to be involved in that. You can't have, but anybody will tell you that. I mean, I haven't really just studied assassinations or talked to assassins, but I know enough snipers that will tell you that a crossfire is what you got to have. You got to have more than one shot. And one interesting thing at the Warren Commission, it was asked in the Warren Commission, they asked the top sniper at the time, could he have made that shot? And he said no. And it turned out he was it was an Olympian. I think he was from a Soviet bloc nation. And they threw that question out. There's just so many holes in this thing because you didn't have instantaneous information. And you'd have two reporters and they're on the take. It wouldn't take much to dislodge a story and just send you down the wrong path. And that's why, honestly, Benny, I don't think we'll ever know. I don't think we'll ever know exactly until we meet our maker what the heck went on there, and several of those. And that's why I think it's important, get as much information about that kid that shot Trump as we can, because we will never know. We will not know who contacted that kid. Because remember, there was talk that he didn't have an internet presence, which is just unheard of. But then he did have accounts overseas, and there was all this other talk, and there was never any clarification of any of that. And you have to be careful, because the people that are against us, the American way, they will dislodge the truth by interjecting falsehoods, and then we go down those paths. So until you see it, I wouldn't trust it. If somebody tells you, I'd question it.
Really quick here, before we get to here he is, Matthew Thomas Crooks, on the phone. There he is, literally talking on the phone. But this is the one phone that the FBI just can't hack, you see. They just can't get access to it. Before we get to this, what does it mean? You represent a branch of the federal government. It's in the Constitution. What does it mean that our government spent so much time to lie to the American people? The entire fraudulence of the Kennedy assassination was a carefully concocted conspiracy theory fomented by the government. It's statistically, scientifically impossible. Based on the evidence, it's not possible. It didn't happen that way. Federal government spent so much time creating a narrative to lie to people who didn't have the technology that we have today. What does it say about our relationship with our government that they would do this? That potentially the CIA was involved, as Tucker Carlson's reporting says.
We're crooked and we're complacent because we allow elected officials to do what they're doing right now. To do what they're doing. I mean, just look at Doge. $10 million for circumcisions. Obviously, they're voluntary. Do you honestly think that money's going there? Yet nobody's demanding. I mean, I am. I'm out here raising the hell about it every day. But where's the leadership? Where is either party on any of this stuff? Why are we not forming bills and laws to put these things that Trump is passing, that we know are by executive order, that we know are just so outrageous? Why are we not doing that? Why are we so overwhelmed with our public forums and our press releases that we can't do that? For instance, I have this crazy bill. We found out that there's $40 million a week going to the Taliban. $40 million a week. Now, and the last session, the dog Buzz just walked in here. The last session, I couldn't even get a senator to pick up the dadgum bill. And why is the public not outraged? It's just, we're getting lazy and complacent. We got Trump in the White House, and we just stop. Our preachers don't preach the gospel. They're gutless. We've got politicians that all they're concerned about, if I do that, man, I might not get reelected. Oh, dadgum. And it just runs down the list. And we're on a grease pole right now, this country is, and we better wake up, because you will see, if Trump is not successful, it will be the end of America as we know it, I feel like, because they're just ganging up, and both parties will, We got about 100, 150 days, and I think, and we're in about what 65 or 70 now, and we better get cracking.
I just want to stop this serious conversation for a moment here, Congressman, and say that the chat and our audience just loves it when you say "dadgum."
Well,
we actually have a custom emoji built for you that says "dadgum." And,
thank you.
Every time you say it, the chat just goes wild, and they're huge fans of Congressman Burchett. So
well,
you're.
I actually put it on a hat and I sell it on my website.
Okay.
Shameless plug.
We'll pull that up. So your contention here is that the federal government had a major hand, potentially LBJ had a major hand in the assassination of Kennedy.
I think so. I think he was an evil, corrupt dude. I understand he got saved before he died, Billy Graham at his ranch, but just everything about that guy. He's mean, he's crooked. I mean, he's what Washington is, if they're allowed, before you were exposed to all this stuff. And he was allowed to do that. And he was an evil, mean man. And there's no question. But there's been some that have probably been more evil and more corrupt. And it's just, and it's on us. When 12% of the population goes and votes, you're going to get it. You're going to get it.
Do you think that the CIA was involved in the?
They had to be. They had to be at some level. I don't know. Everybody gets off on these conspiracies, but the reality is that they had to be to put him in that place. That the CIA agents had been out drinking the night before. They were hungover, and I dare say, they talk, and it's just not like he should have been in a bubbled car, and that with it when you're riding down the street in high rises, everybody. I mean, that's just the whole thing. I think they made the opportunity available, and somebody did, not the agents on the ground. I'm sure they're patriotic Americans, and I think the last one of them died the other day. He was 90 something. But you're right. There's nobody left alive. We're protecting the institution. It's like I want to. My dogs are barking. It's like the churches these days. They're not going to, and I'm going off on them because I'm part of that problem, I guess. But they're not worried about the gospel of Christ. They're worried about the brick structure and their hierarchy within their religious circles. And it's the same way with government. They're just protecting the hierarchy. They're protecting the reputation of their institutions, and it's beyond me. But that's what we're. And for the record, again, I am not suicidal. If you find me tomorrow with 12 bullet holes in the back of my head, I did not shoot myself.
Definitely not with the
one
Italian
bullet.
rifle that Oswald used to kill.
One other thing. The gun they show holding up is a
Carcano. A Carcano Model 38. Carcano.
Yeah. So everything about this just stinks. And I don't know how we'll ever get to the bottom of it. And, because when this evidence comes out, you watch 70,000 files, there'll be so much in there and people will be chasing so many rabbits. It'll be the last man standing who gets to the last piece of information, can piece it all together. But we're not talking 70,000 pages. We're talking 70,000 files.
So you don't think you don't think they're going to actually give the truth, even with all the full declassification?
I think it's in there. You just got to piece it out. It's like they used to say, Michelangelo or somebody look at a block of marble and say, "Well, it's in there. I just got to chisel it out." That's my way of saying, "Dadgummit, it's a mess."
Final question, Congressman, because you did just bring up like you're not suicidal. The similarities between these cover-ups, man. I mean, you can see the documents where the FBI is protecting Epstein as a
that dirtbag. Yeah.
Confidential human informant.
They used him again. They used him. Everybody thinks they're invaluable until they're not. And I remember I tweeted out, I was down at the beach in Florida, and I tweeted out and I said, I hope he isn't suicided. And 15 minutes later, somebody said, one of them said, "Boss, you're a prophet." I said, "What?" And said, "Epstein just offed himself." And I said, "The hell he did." I said, let me guess. He hung himself in a jail and nobody saw it. And they said, yeah, how'd you know? And I was like, that's another deal. I mean, that's just, nobody buys that. But the thing is, we're so complacent. We don't demand, it's freaking New York. Who'd have thought there'd be corruption up there?
Yeah, well, it's just the same parallels, right? It's the same thing with Matthew Thomas Crooks. It's the destruction of evidence. It's the withholding of evidence. It's the cameras were turned off. We can't give you the official story. We can't give you what actually happened. We can't hand you the evidence. And so we're going to lie to you and hope it goes away. And I really just hope it doesn't go away.
And the one lone attempted assassin, think about it. The guy that shot Reagan, I mean, everybody saw it. They knew it was him, and he was allowed to live.
He's free now.
Yeah, he's out now.
He's out.
He's on a book.
He's a musician now. Yeah, he makes albums. Like, he's like having a good time. Shot Reagan right in the chest. And Congressman, insightful, exciting, and honest, more importantly.
Thank you.
And we're just such huge fans of your CNN hits. We didn't get a chance to play the newest one, but man, you just give them a whooping.
And this morning, it's called a Tennessee dog whooping. I don't know about that. A blind hog gets an acorn every now and then, Benny. You're very kind. I don't know why they keep having me on. I think it's a therapy session. I think we got to take 15 minutes. We're going to abuse this poor knucklehead from Tennessee for 15 minutes. I walked out. I'm in my new office. My wife is just like the queen bee of decorations. I would spin it around and show everything, but I walked out and she was drinking her coffee in the kitchen. She just kind of looked at me and nodded. Because I said, what? The thing is, every time I'm on CNN, those radicals all over the country, they call my office and yell at the girls in my office, like, how tough is that? They remind me of little punks when I was in school that throw a rock over the fence and run home and hide behind their mama's skirts. That's what these liberals are. We got to take it to them, man. Take it to them. The truth, baby. That's where it's at.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can see the post right here. It's on our timeline. Go check it out. Tim Burchett. Man, this was an absolute flamethrower. Congressman, always speaking truth. We're very thankful for you. Follow Tim Burchett, who has 260,000 followers now. Holy moly.
Thank you, Benny.
Thanks for getting
me there. Thanks for getting me there, brother.
You've gone viral, Congressman.
Yeah, I know.
We love that. This audience absolutely loves you and stands with you. Godspeed.
Dadgummit, Benny, thank you, man. You're a godsend for this country, man. I'm out. I've got a lot of rural folks. I know y'all listen to me and think, gosh, this guy must have been Ivy League educated or something. But no, my folks love you. I seen you on the Benny show. It's like I seen you at the Walmart. But but they love you, brother. Thank you for what you do for this country, man, and thank you for being a good dad.
Yes. That's actually the most important work for the country.
Number one.
You can't have a good country without more Americans and good Americans.
That's right. I saw JD Vance at something. The guy's got some like evil mind where he can remember people's names. He's met me like once and he says, hey, Tim, we were talking and he was leaving this thing. He said, I got to get something with my daughters. They're having my kids. It was back during Christmas. They were at some Christmas. I said, dude, get out of here. I said, that's what's and he agreed with me. So I dig that. So thank you, brother.
I dig that. All right. Thank you, Congressman. Godspeed once again. Thank you for being a truth teller. Maybe the only one.
I don't know about that. Thanks, brother. Love you, Benny.
Whew, ladies and gentlemen, we got Roger Stone coming up in the bullpen. We're very, very excited about it. We also are excited about this brand new year. I do have 4 kids. I do want to stay in shape for 4 kids under 4 and under. Got a kid, a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 2-year-old, 1-year-old. Whew, it's a lot of work, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes I don't get enough time outside of the studio to be with the family and certainly to eat healthy. But Field of Greens keeps me going. Field of Greens is how I get my daily fruits and vegetables. It's how I feel healthy and have better gut health and have the strength and energy to keep rocking on this program. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you are not part of those Americans who have a 24-year low level of confidence, and energy. Make sure that you are being healthy with Field of Greens from Brickhouse Nutrition. Go to fieldofgreens.com, code Benny, fieldofgreens.com, code Benny, to make sure that you are getting your doses of fruits and vegetables, energies and vitamins, and that you are living your best life. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody living his best life who was also on CNN once during an early morning raid that CNN just magically happened to be stationed outside of his house is the great Roger Stone. Roger Stone, somebody with personal knowledge about what actually happened to JFK on that dark day in American history. You could say he wrote the book on it because he actually did. Roger Stone joining the program live now. Roger, it's an honor to have you on the show again. I need some fashion tips, man. I mean, listen, just look at the difference here between you and me. I got work to do.
Yes, you do.
I got work to do. But that's not what this show is about, Roger. This show is about who killed Kennedy and why. And you, as somebody who literally wrote the book on it, I think we should just put it up right now. You who wrote the book on it, and you can get it here. What's the URL there, Klein?
The man who killed Kennedy.com. The man who killed Kennedy.com.
Man who killed Kennedy.com. Roger, the floor is yours. And I'd just like to begin by saying, you know, we've established that the government's clearly lying. So who are they lying for? And who killed Kennedy?
Well, Benny, first of all, there are a number of elements of this. By the way, I love Congressman Tim Burchett, but just to be clear, John Hinckley Jr. was crouching in front of Reagan, got off 4 shots, all accounted for. Reagan was hit from behind and above. Undisputable. My next book. The Kennedy question is a complicated one because it involves, I hate this word, a conspiracy that included the Central Intelligence Agency, Big Texas Oil, the mafia, but the linchpin in it, the common factor, is Lyndon Baines Johnson. He's the man with the greatest motive because he's under investigation in the Bobby Baker investigation and the Billy Saul Estes investigation, 2 enormous scandals of the 1960s. It's interesting that Robert Caro has a multi-volume Pulitzer Prize-winning biography of LBJ, yet he never mentions Billy Saul Estes. That's because Saul Estes has been very open after getting out of prison that he sat in meetings in which the murder of John F. Kennedy was discussed. So you have to look at each element of this for motive, means, and opportunity. Johnson's motive is very clear. That is why a man named Malcolm Wallace, in the employ of Lyndon Johnson's, fingerprints are found on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building. And at least 6 witnesses tell either the FBI or the Dallas police that they see a man in the window of the 6th floor who meets the physical description of Wallace, not Lee Harvey Oswald. Middle age, heavy set, balding with spectacles. Recently, I think it was Alex Jones, released an audio, which was a conversation between Johnson crony Billy Saul Estes and Cliff Carter, who was the executive director of the DNC under LBJ, LBJ's right-hand man political operative, openly discussing the fact that Malcolm Wallace had been hired by Johnson to kill Kennedy. Then you have the involvement of the Central Intelligence Agency. They're upset about Kennedy's handling of the Bay of Pigs, which is a fiasco to say the least. They're also upset about his handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis because, as we learned 40 years later, when documents were declassified, Bobby and Jack did not face down Khrushchev. That's a media-created myth. They made a secret deal to remove our missiles from Turkey and Italy, changing the balance of power in Europe. And the Central Intelligence Agency believes that Kennedy bungled both the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis. Then you have the mob. They were double-crossed. Ambassador Joe Kennedy essentially made a deal with the mafia to deliver both money, $1 million in 1959, a huge amount of money, but also votes, arm twisting for JFK in Illinois and in Texas, giving the election in a razor-thin margin to Jack Kennedy over Vice President Nixon. So everybody here has their own motives, but Johnson's motive is most acute. What we're waiting for now, and I ask this question rhetorically, why would CIA Director Mike Pompeo urge President Trump in 2017 not to release all of these documents? But it's pretty clear that the interest that he is protecting is the Central Intelligence Agency. So what I expect now from this new tranche of documents is further evidence of the agency's involvement in the murder of Kennedy. Johnson's involvement is essentially already proven between the fingerprints and this new audio. Organized crime's involvement is proven by the jail buggings of Sam Giancana, both before and after the Kennedy assassination, which he brags about the fact that it's coming, and he brags about the involvement of the mob after it happens. So we're just waiting for one more piece to fall into place, and that's the Central Intelligence Agency. There are other players. Kennedy wanted a silverback dollar. The banks were bitterly opposed to him. The Secret Service clearly violates their own manual and their own rules, and they stand down on November 22nd, 1963. And then you have the whole question of the route of the motorcade. If JFK is going from one point outside of Dallas to another point outside of Dallas, why does he need to come through Dealey Plaza rather than taking the freeway? That's because that is the motorcade route that Governor John Connally, protege of Lyndon Johnson, former administrative assistant to Lyndon Johnson in the Senate, that is the motorcade route that Governor Connally insisted upon.
So you have to be very powerful to do this. You to change, who has the power to change a presidential motorcade, right? Who has the power to doctor bodies and autopsies, to move the president's body after he's been shot? Yeah, to have the power over where the president goes, how he's traveling. He should have never been in a vehicle like that, right? Open-air limousine with skyscrapers all over him.
Interestingly enough, it is Johnson who insists that the plastic bubble top be removed from the limousine. It had just rained. Now, the bubble top is not bulletproof, but it would impede the aim of a sharpshooter. It is Johnson who tells Bill Moyers to tell the Secret Service to remove the bubble top from Kennedy's car. Jerry Bruno, who has written a great short book, he was JFK's chief advance man, records that he argues with Governor Connally about the motorcade route. And Connally says, we're either driving through Dealey Plaza or the whole trip is canceled. Now, governors don't normally talk to presidential staff that way, but clearly Johnson convinced Kennedy to go to Texas. The idea was to bind up the divisions between the more conservative Bourbon wing of the Democrat Party and the more progressive wing, as represented by Senator Ralph Yarborough. On the night before the assassination, LBJ goes to Kennedy's hotel room in Fort Worth and tries to convince him to put Yarborough, his arch rival, in the death car and move Connally to the vice presidential car. And JFK refuses.
Wow. Assassination insurance, maybe. But I mean, I got to tell you, Roger, we spent the first hour of the show just going through the experts, right? Going through the forensics. This is clearly the most obvious lie, including but not limited to that Secret Service agent that you just talked about. Now coming forward in his late 90s saying he found the magic bullet he found actually lodged into the back of the limousine. So just one more blatant, humiliating hole blown into what the government is pushing forward here. It's been a lie for a long time. Your former boss, Richard Nixon, said, I think I know who actually killed Kennedy. He said it in tapes. They're recorded. And he was calling in the director of the CIA and was quite insistent about this. Yep. Do you have any indication about what Nixon believed, who Nixon believed killed Kennedy? Because the two men were friends, they're pretty close friends, right? So
yes.
And clearly Nixon, as a president, would be interested in knowing who's killing presidents, right?
Yeah, there's kind of several parts to this. First of all, Kennedy and Nixon both come to the House in 1947. They're both the low man on the House Labor Committee. They are both staunch anti-communists. In fact, John Kennedy's father, Ambassador Joseph Kennedy, helped finance Nixon's campaign for the Senate because he's running against left-winger Helen Gahagan Douglas. Early in the Watergate scandal, when Nixon is seeking the help of the CIA, he meets with Richard Helms, and it's a typical Nixonian conversation. It's somewhat convoluted, but he gets his point across. And he says, "Look, if it hits the fan, there's a lot of secrets over there that I know about. A lot of dirty stuff went on that had to be done." He's referring initially to the toppling of the government in Guatemala, but at a certain point, he says, "Look, I know who shot John." There it is, out in plain sight. Now, that was really the genesis for my writing the book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, which I use fingerprint evidence, eyewitness evidence, deep Texas politics to make the case that Johnson is the ringleader. But I asked him directly, and this was after a couple of his famous silver bullet martinis, "Mr. President, who really killed Kennedy?" He looked darkly into his glass for a minute, looked up at me and said, "Well, let me put it to you this way. The Warren Commission is the biggest goddamn hoax of all time." I said, "Sir, I don't understand. What do you mean?" He said, "Well, Lyndon and I both wanted to be president. The difference is I wasn't willing to kill for it." He said similar things on tape to Pat Buchanan and others. So I think he knew exactly who killed Kennedy. And what we hopefully will find out in this next tranche of documents is cementing the CIA's role. However, it's important to note that President Trump has ordered the release of the JFK assassination documents archive. And while that's good, there are documents, as Congressman Tim Burchett has pointed out, at the FBI, at the CIA, at the State Department, at the Defense Department, at the IRS, all of which would shed further light on this, but were not included in the declassification order by President Trump.
Mm. So your former boss, somebody who you have had an incredibly close relationship with, Richard Nixon, says that Lyndon Baines Johnson was willing to kill to become president when you asked him directly who killed Kennedy.
That is correct.
Okay. So why didn't Richard Nixon, with the single largest, most successful presidential race in history, with a mandate that pales every other presidential election comparison, the most popular president in history, why didn't Richard Nixon investigate this?
Well, he tried. In fact, interestingly enough, as Bob Haldeman, his chief of staff, reflects in his memoirs, as John Ehrlichman, who was his chief domestic advisor, reflects in his memoirs, and as Nixon himself reflects in his memoirs, in 1969, he sent Ehrlichman over to the CIA to get all of the documents pertaining to Kennedy's murder, and the agency simply refused to supply them. This, I think, is just one of the factors in Nixon's deep distrust of the Central Intelligence Agency. They had briefed Kennedy prior to the 1960 debate regarding the impending Bay of Pigs invasion, our invasion of Cuba, but it was classified. In the debate, Kennedy roasts Nixon about, "You're not doing enough to remove Castro," knowing that there's a plan afoot to do so, but that both Nixon and Kennedy are not able, because of his classification, to discuss it. That is why within the last year, there have been documents declassified that prove that the Central Intelligence Agency was well aware of the plan for the Watergate break-in, and that 4 of the Watergate burglars are still on the payroll of the CIA on the date of the break-in and still reporting to their handlers within the agency. My point is this. John Kennedy was taken down in a bloody coup. He was murdered. Richard Nixon was taken down in a silent coup. Watergate. And these are the same forces, in my opinion, that tried to take out both Ronald Reagan, and again, I addressed that briefly. There's never been a report released on the assassination of Reagan. That's why I'm writing this book. And then more recently in Butler, Pennsylvania, and in West Palm Beach, the same forces, not the same people, but the same forces, tried to kill President Donald Trump.
We know so little about Matthew Thomas Crooks and Ryan Ralph. Since you bring them up, do you believe that they had some type of government connection, either a splinter cell, a fifth column? Do you think that they were being operated?
More likely in the case of Ralph. I mean, he's indigent, we're told. He's behind in his rental payments. He's behind in his alimony payments. Who paid for him to come to the United States from Hawaii to the mainland? Who paid for him to go to London, Paris, and Kyiv? Who pays for his website, in which he is trying to recruit mercenary soldiers to fight in Ukraine? How did he get a firearm? He clearly didn't come to the United States with it, couldn't carry it on board. So, and the firearm he has the serial numbers filed off of it. So I think there are a lot of indications that he's an asset, either an asset of the Central Intelligence Agency, but more likely an asset of Ukrainian intelligence. And they, of course, as you know, the government wanted to postpone his trial indefinitely because they said there was so much evidence that they couldn't deal with it. Fortunately, he will have a trial, but how much of this a judge will allow, as I learned the hard way, you're not allowed to introduce evidence in your own defense. That's not allowed, particularly in the District of Columbia.
Roger, what will it say about the federal government when and if it becomes at scale knowledge that, because I don't believe it's at scale exactly yet with Kennedy's assassination. I don't think that I think that there's a lot of interest, but I'm not sure there's a lot of certitude that the federal government within the American people acted to kill a president. Let's put his book on screen. But what happens when the vast majority of Americans understand that this was a conspiracy inside of the government in order to completely decouple the American republic from the people and to have a series of unelected and illegitimate presidents installed that were subservient to a much darker and deeper state?
Well, I think that's probably precisely the argument that CIA Director Mike Pompeo used with President Donald Trump, that would undermine the people's confidence in the institution. But what I think this underlines, first of all, it's encouraging that even today, 73% of the people tell the Gallup poll that they don't believe Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy. And if they do, they don't believe he acted alone. That despite decades of mainstream media reinforcement of a fatally flawed theory. I'm sorry, but bullets don't change don't change directions. The single bullet theory concocted by Senator Arlen Specter, then the chief investigator for the Warren Commission, is logistically and ballistically impossible, not possible. So I think the answer, of course, is that I think 1963 and the murder of Kennedy is the beginning of the deep state control of our government. This is exactly what President Eisenhower was trying to warn us about on his way out the door. Go back and look at that video. He talks about the military-industrial complex and the accumulation of power by unelected bureaucrats, those in the defense industry, those later in the think tanks, those throughout the national security apparatus, and in the military. I think 1963 is when they lose control, the American people lose control of their government. And then when you have elected presidents who were outsiders or who had plans to disrupt the globalist agenda, well, they tried to kill them. Reagan, Nixon, who they removed, Reagan, and now Trump.
The beginning of the deep state as we know it. Has there been a legitimate government since the killing of Kennedy?
Well, define legitimate. I mean, I have serious questions about the validity of the 2020 election. I think the political establishment was taken by surprise in 2016. Surely Hillary Clinton and her husband, who have vast experience in presidential campaign politics, are going to beat this improbable billionaire from New York who's never done this before. They got outworked, they got outsmarted, they got outfoxed, and they lost. And that freaks them out. They lose control. When I say they, I speak of the two-party duopoly. I mean, very sadly, the division in America today is not between Republicans and Democrats. It's between globalists and nationalists. I define nationalists as those who love the United States. I believe those who are for war, those who are for censorship, those who think, for example, that big pharma and big food should just do whatever they want as long as profits are fat. That's kind of one side of the divide. And on the other side, you have the people of common sense. They're not all Republicans. I see a new realignment in America in which Democrats like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat, now a Republican, Governor Rod Blagojevich, and other Democrats who believe in capitalism, free enterprise, patriotism, a strong national defense. I see that as the new divide in America, not Republican, Democrat.
Roger, always such a deep wealth of knowledge. I'd love to have you on standby for the rest of the week based on what we learn in these Kennedy documents drop. And you should be on standby on Roger's social media. We've already put up his book link, but you should follow him. 800,000 Americans already do. Roger Stone, a legend, a living legend, and somebody who knows where all the bodies are buried. Man, they did Watergate to Nixon because he was asking questions about Kennedy, didn't they, man? They did.
No
they
question.
did. It's crazy. The man who wrote the book on all of it, a friend of the show. Godspeed, Roger Stone.
Thank you, Benny. Thanks for having me.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's encouraging, isn't it? Because in any other era, you'd have a show like this be stripped from the internet. Everybody would come after us. Tinfoil hats. And can't ever trust this guy again. But now, most people are just nodding along, being like, yeah, totally. It's the CIA kills Kennedy, and then they stage the Watergate hoax. And the reason why it's so believable is because we've just seen it all with Donald Trump. We watched it all happen in real time. It's the cold comfort that we have, the silver lining on the very dark cloud, is that they don't have new tricks. It's kind of the old tricks. It's the same stuff. It's literally the same stuff. The lawfare, the hoaxes, the scandals, the shootings, it's all the same stuff. And there's one reporter who's been covering it, who has seen from the inside exactly how dark this beast gets. And as the empire strikes back against Donald Trump inside of the courthouses of Washington, D.C., there's only one expert journalist that we would dare have on our program to inform us about what's going on, and that is the great Julie Kelly. Julie, what the hell's going on? Both. Okay, I mean, I know we're gonna jump around here just a bit, but so a D.C. District Judge Boasberg, I'm sure you know this guy. I'm sure you've seen him in action. Yeah. Based on your extensive reporting in Washington, D.C. on J6 cases, this guy's saying that I'm the president, I'm the commander-in-chief, and I can enjoin troop movements. Effectively what he's doing with these flights is saying, I'm in charge of the military now. And the president has to go to me to get his Article 2 powers. It's crazy.
So, of course, Benny, thanks to you, your viewers are not shocked by this egregious misconduct, almost lawless conduct by DC federal judges, because, of course, we've been talking about this for years and their handling of January 6 cases. Now, I was in Judge Boasberg's courtroom last December of 2024. He is the new chief judge. He's been in that capacity since mid-2023. Obama appointed chief judge now of the DC District Court. Benny, he refused to postpone the trial of a woman who went inside the Capitol for 9 minutes on January 6th, committed no violence, was charged with the common 4 misdemeanors that you and I have talked about. She wasn't accused of assaulting police, destroying property, anything like that. She asked to delay the trial until after the inauguration based on President Trump's pledge to pardon J6ers, especially people like this woman charged with only 4 misdemeanors. The chief judge of the DC District Court denied her motion to postpone the trial, put her on trial the week before Christmas before a DC jury in a city that had just voted 92% for Kamala Harris. Of course, she was convicted within a matter of a few hours. She was never sentenced. But what Bosberg said, and like a lot of the other judges said in refusing to postpone either trials or sentencing hearings, is we don't care what the president says. He can make all these promises about pardons, but we are going to wait until after Inauguration Day. We have a judicial duty to carry out the legal process, judicial process, despite what the executive branch says. Okay. So now fast forward, Judge Bosberg going to the mat to defend Venezuelan illegal aliens suspected of ties to a Venezuelan gang that has been designated a foreign terrorist organization by the Trump administration, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Bosberg jumped into action on Saturday, issued 2 temporary restraining orders, and in this crazy hearing that he set for 5 o'clock Saturday evening, he demanded the return of any flights carrying these suspected terrorists to Honduras and then El Salvador. Then had this other hearing yesterday we can talk about. This is how power hungry, how unaccountable, how insulated these judges are. And we have some breaking news about a statement just made by Chief Justice John Roberts that should give no one any confidence that the Supreme Court is going to stop what's happening, especially in this DC federal courthouse. But this matter is ongoing. But imagine the Chief Judge of Washington, D.C., ordering the Department of Justice at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. I don't care where these planes are. Have them turn back and return suspected terrorists to the United States. Even I didn't see this coming, Benny. As bad as these judges are, even I didn't see this level of depravity coming out of these DC judges.
So in tweet form, which is the only thing that we're really good at this show, this son of a bitch tortured J6ers, innocent J6ers who did nothing and did not behave criminally.
Right.
Who trespassed. And have thrown the book at them, and now he is doing everything he can to protect criminal alien terrorists on our soil and to bring them back to our soil. So did I get that right?
That's absolutely correct.
That's the balance here? This is the balance of judgment in this courthouse?
That is.
Okay.
That is.
Good.
Now, Bosberg, as I've written, handled about 70 J6 cases. He threw, to your point, even American citizens convicted, either pleaded guilty or convicted by a DC jury of the most low-level petty offense, like parading in the Capitol, threw them in federal prison on that. Now, there was one J6er, Benny, that Judge Bosberg didn't throw the book at, that he demonstrated deep level of sympathy for, and that was Ray Epps.
Oh, I knew it was coming. This is why you know what? We have the singularity, Julie. We have the singularity. I love it when Julie's on the program because I knew it was coming.
You knew it was coming.
This is the guy. That's unbelievable. So this is the guy that let Ray Epps off.
And not only did he let off Ray Epps, Benny, and I posted this, I actually had bought the transcript of this sentencing hearing last year, and I just dug it up. Not only did he only give Ray Epps probation, he expressed all sort of sympathy for Ray Epps, how he was a victim of so-called conspiracy theories. But more importantly, and I just posted this on X, he called January 6th an insurrection incited by Trump supporters. None of these judges should be presiding over any lawsuit related to the Trump administration. with exception of maybe 2 or 3, every single DC district court judge has on multiple occasions expressed their contempt for Donald Trump and his supporters. They should be immediately disqualified. Now, of course, you can move you can ask to disqualify those judges, for them to recuse. Yesterday, the DOJ did ask the clerk of the DC Appellate Court to remove Judge Boasberg from this case and assign it to another judge. What judge? They're all going to do the same thing he is. It's a nice motion. It's a nice attempt, but it's hard. You're not going to get an improvement in that courthouse. So this is what the Trump administration, this DOJ, has been inundated with, these not just ridiculous lawsuits, but also this egregious unconstitutional overreach by federal judges, of course, not just in Washington, but other jurisdictions as well.
So that's the tweet version. I wanted to get to that because
I hope so.
J6 versus criminal aliens, murderers, terrorists, and rapists. Like, I think that's an important issue to cement. And then let's move down the line to a grander scale, which is the Constitution itself. Mm-hmm. And in what universe does a judge have the power to interdict on Article 2 of the Constitution? Mm-hmm. You'd assume that John Roberts, that the conservative court, if you're being generous, is a 6-3 court in favor of people who care about the Constitution. You would assume that they would deeply and abidingly protect the powers that are given and bestowed and vested into the president, the first of which, of course, is going to be a commander-in-chief powers to protect the homeland and to expel invasion. And this is, of course, an invasion, and the Foreign Enemies Act establishes that quite clearly. Mm-hmm. The founders of our country created the Foreign Enemies Act for this exact power. I don't think it's ever been challenged in court before because it's not subject to judicial review. So how the hell is it being reviewed? How is this even happening, I wonder?
Well, here's really a big problem for Judge Boasberg in general, and that is he has never addressed his beef with President Trump's proclamation that was signed on Friday and then posted on Saturday, invoking this Alien Enemies Act, declaring again the TDA, this Trenda Aragua gang, is a foreign terrorist organization, that it is supported by the Maduro regime, that it is a dangerous operation, that thousands of these gang members have been flooded into the United States illegally, and they pose a sincere, and we've seen this already, a serious national security and safety threat. So Judge Boasberg has never demonstrated why he believes that President Trump's proclamation invoking this Alien Enemies Act is unconstitutional or illegal, or even, to your point, subjected to judicial review. This is all a power struggle, and this is what we've seen repeatedly and playing out over and over in courtrooms, a power struggle between unelected lifer judges on the federal bench, somehow making their case that their authority supersedes the president. That's all that this has been about. And not only did he do that on Saturday, but yesterday, the hearing that I covered, and you probably saw my coverage on X in real time, demanding what the DOJ and Trump administration rightfully argues are national security secrets that are covered by foreign military and diplomatic protections for the president, but demanding that they disclose details about these flights. How many people were on these flights? What time did they take off? What time did they land? What countries did they go to? When were they taken into custody in these various countries? Aside from the fact he thought he could order planes filled with terrorists back to the United States, on what basis is he entitled to even that sort of protected information? So the DOJ, and I did post this just before I went on with you, people can see the DOJ's response to Judge Boasberg demanding answers to those questions. But we should, in the interim, read what Chief Justice John Roberts just said in a statement, if you want me to read that verbatim.
Yeah, we'll pop it up right now. Here we go.
So this is in response to President Trump and others calling for the impeachment of Judge Boasberg. I believe Representative Brandon Gill just filed those articles. And here he says, for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. This is not a judicial disagreement. And furthermore, as we know, the Supreme Court has completely turned a blind eye to all of this lawfare against the president, refusing to step in, even in that outlandish U.S. aid case, the $2 billion that one judge tried to order the administration to disperse. But you can even see here by what Chief Justice says, he still gives all the control to the judiciary. So, but this is not a judicial disagreement. This is a constitutional crisis that has been created by the federal bench.
Yes.
And the judges right under his nose in the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. So this is a very troubling statement indicating once again that the Supreme Court, especially Chief Justice John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett, who refused to get involved in that case I was just discussing, that there's going to be any relief for the administration or the American people. And this will only embolden the judges to continue accelerating their bad behavior when it comes to trying to overturn the president's authority.
Yeah, somebody needs to smash down upon constitutional lines, because there's way too much of a ninja blender going on right now, and the Constitution being fed into it, and it's just mixing too much for us. We're no scholars. We didn't go to law school, Julie. We went to community college, but even I know my separation of powers. And if a president, the equivalent to this, am I wrong here? Tell me if I'm wrong, please. But the equivalent of this would be the president of the United States, duly elected, picking up a gavel, deciding to wear black one day, like I do every day, and going, actually, I've decided to rule on behalf of the judge. And I'm a judge now, and so I'm going to decide in the judiciary what's going on. It seems so egregiously intrusive into the powers of the presidency, much as if a president tried to play a judge in the Oval Office and declare things, right, with a little hammer. People would say that's absurdist. It's obviously a desecration to the separation of powers. Am I correct in that metaphor?
I believe you are correct, even though you went to community college. It appears that you did pay attention during your Constitution class. Good for you, Benny. And I went to public college, EIU, Eastern Illinois. So, but we are still smart enough to figure all this out, and we are obligated to figure all this out because we're American citizens. This is our country. We pay taxes, and we have a right to look at all of this and figure out what is going on. But furthermore, so yes, this is a very good hypothetical that you just presented. But look, these judges have been off the hook. Justice Roberts is wrong. It is not 2 centuries that have established impeachment is not an appropriate response. It is 2 centuries of Congress willfully abdicating their oversight role of the federal judiciary with a few exceptions. I think the last time a federal judge was impeached was 30 years ago. They've completely abdicated their role. That's why these judges are justified in viewing themselves as impervious, as omnipotent, unaccountable, because they have been. And look, I've been on your show for years. We have talked about these judges ad nauseum and specific judges who should be impeached, starting with, I believe, Boasberg's predecessor, Beryl Howell. But Congress had no appetite for it. They're not even cutting off funding to the federal court system in Washington, D.C. So we've gotten so far past the point of accountability. So it's not that impeachment has been used, but used cautiously. It hasn't been used at all. And so it is encouraging to see the president call for that and others, and now House Republicans who are actually moving forward with this. Now, Benny, where's this going to go? House Judiciary, you can get an impeachment. It goes to the Senate. You're not going to get 2/3. But the process in and of itself will send a message that this simply will not be tolerated.
Yeah, the way the map's working out, if if you're very lucky at the casino, the way the map's working out for Republicans in the Senate, you could get 65 seats. I'm sorry, 55 seats, and you could get close. Yeah, I mean, you could get close. You get within a whisker. You get a scary number. I mean, I guess 56 with J.D. Vance. So it's like we could see potentially this happen. What do we see next, Julie? I mean, will the Supreme Court actually continue to side with these judges? And I guess my final question for you, should the District of Columbia federal bench exist at all? Because, my God, it does seem like the most ass-backwards, crazy rulings that have no merit and regularly overturned at the Supreme Court. They always come from that district. It's always there. It's always D.C.
Well, I've called this the circle of hell, and that is the D.C. federal court, the Washington FBI field office, and the D.C. U.S. Attorney's office. Now, luckily, two of those offices, at least the D.C. U.S. Attorney and Washington FBI, have gotten rid of some really bad actors and are under new leadership. That's not the case here in the federal court system. No political case should be handled in that courthouse because all of the judges are compromised. We are seeing people reporting on this. I believe Laura Loomer and others have reported on the conflicts between Judge Boasberg and his wife and his sister, and I believe his daughter. They are all Democrat political activists. We have seen this with other judges. I mean, you see Chris Cooper, for example, who also presided over 70, 80 J6 cases. His wife, a former top deputy to Attorney General Eric Holder. She represented Lisa Page. So, we could go through all of the conflicts of not just the judges, but the line prosecutors who used to handle these J6 cases and other political matters. Not a single case of political nature or origins should be handled there. There's other jurisdictions in Maryland and Virginia where these cases should be transferred to. Yes, Benny, I've said this too, and you and I have talked about it. The DC federal court system should be completely defunded, disbanded, because it is the rot. It is the tumor of the cancer of this legal and judicial lawfare that these activists continue to drag our country through, President Trump and now his new administration. There's just no reason why Republicans should keep giving that court system money, because what they've done is turn around and use it to try to destroy President Trump, the MAGA movement, and anyone attached to it.
Julie Kelly, I gotta tell you, I'm so thankful that you joined us on JFK Day. And there's nobody who's spoken more truth about what's actually happened inside of the superstate of the federal government than you. I'll give you the final word here. JFK, what do you expect today?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't even followed it. I hate to say it. I was listening to Roger Stone before you, but I'm buried in all of this other.
Yeah, that's right.
As you know,
we wanted some balance here, actually. Yeah, that's.
No,
right.
I like it.
Yeah, because there's like the scandals. There's the scandals of 70 years ago that are quite interesting and tantalizing and unique. But then there's like what we're living through today that'll affect us and our children. So
well, it's all a common thread, I believe. So, but I've got a lot of JFK Kennedy lovers in my family and household, so I'm sure that I will find out what is disclosed.
You should be a Julie Kelly lover. You should head on over to Julie Kelly's nearly 1 million Patriot following on X, and then Declassified with Julie Kelly, which is her Substack, where you will be able to find all of her extensive reporting, which is elite, as we would say in this profession. Julie Kelly, always such a pleasure.
You're the best, Benny. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta say, man, sometimes you just gotta sit back and let the smart people do the talking, okay? And this is what we're doing. We want to do a big shout out to Laura Loomer. She was just name dropped there by Julie Kelly. But Laura Loomer's been like a dog with a bone when it comes to Hunter Biden and his Secret Service detail. This came as a shock to me. Hunter Biden is not entitled to Secret Service detail. This is something that of course, is at the pleasure of the president. And Laura Loomer has been reporting on how Hunter Biden's doing lavish vacations, even though he's dead broke, with Secret Service, with dozens of Secret Service agents, 30 in tow, to South Africa. He's fled the country. And this reporting has now gotten Hunter Biden's Secret Service canceled. Woo, man, effed around, found out just a bit. Hunter Biden, again, fled America, did so with his Secret Service in tow. And now President Trump has stripped Hunter, not just Hunter, Ashley Biden of their Secret Service detail. President Trump revoked Hunter and Ashley Biden's Secret Service detail on Monday after the former son, flanked by agents, was spotted in an ultra-luxurious getaway in South Africa. That's like $1,000 a night. Hunter had Secret Service protection for an extended period of time, all paid for by the U.S. taxpayers, Trump wrote on Truth Social. There's as many as 18 people in his detail, which is ridiculous. He's currently vacationing in all places of South Africa, where human rights of people have been strenuously questioned, the president added. Because of this, South Africa has been taken off our list of countries receiving economic and financial assistance. Please be advised that effective immediately, Hunter Biden will no longer receive Secret Service protection, says Trump. Likewise, Ashley Biden, who has 13 agents, will be taken off the list. These jackasses can pay for their own security. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. Okay? You've never once found me, the left, let's do the common thread here. Libs cheered on Matthew Thomas Crooks. They cheer on Luigi. Libs cheer these sociopaths and these murderers on. Libs are the ones swatting conservative creators right now and independent journalists. Right, they're the ones that engage in this style of behavior. That's an attempted assassination. I will never and have never called for anyone to get hurt. I don't want harm to come to these people. I just know that, well, most people don't have private security, and more importantly, the Biden family has embezzled untold millions, if not billions, so they have plenty of money to pay for their own private security. Private security companies exist everywhere. There are thousands of them, and they're like a dime. Just go get one. Go get one. Same with Fauci. Same with Pompeo. Nobody's saying you shouldn't be protected if you're all scared, but you better go get you're not allowed to tax my family for your fleeing the country, which is really what's happening because Hunter Biden's being deposed right now in a court of law. So he's literally leaving. We are aware of the president's decision to terminate protection for Hunter and Ashley Biden, says Secret Service spokesperson Anthony Guglielmini. The Secret Service will comply and is actively working with the protective detail and the White House to ensure compliance as soon as possible. Agents guarding Hunter and Ashley cannot leave their posts until necessary paperwork formalizing Trump's order is put in, sources told the Post. The process of dismantling the taxpayer protection provided by the Biden clan will begin on Tuesday, today. The president's announcement came just hours after he said he would look into revoking the 55-year-old former president's son. Again, he's 55-year-old. Everyone keeps the PR line on Hunter Biden is he's a child. He's Joe Biden's wayward son. He's 55. Yeah. Okay, good. Man, talk about real results. This is what we're doing out. This is what we're doing out here. And it came through the reporting of Laura Loomer, who's again been just absolutely dogged on this. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to be accessing this style of reporting in real time, a lot of it happens on X. If you wish to have access to the TikTok and the day-to-day of this really exciting moment in independent media, we're so proud to be part of it, and we're hearts out to the chat. We freaking love you, and we thank you for making us part of it. Then, well, hot damn, you should be following along on Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is the phone that keeps us connected to all of our independent journalists, media creators. It is the phone that offers us the best possible network all across the country because we are traveling all over the place. We've got more exciting things planned. Patriot Mobile offers us a way to vote with our wallet because the only Christian conservative wireless provider. Make sure that we don't compromise on quality, however, because we must be able to be connected to you. They're available on all three major networks, and wherever your cell phone coverage takes you, Patriot Mobile can go there, and now you can fund, well, not libs who want to destroy you and censor your free speech. Terrible to do that with a cell phone. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service. Promo code Benny. Patriot Mobile today to defend your freedom with every call or text you make. patriotmobile.com/Benny. 972-PATRIOT. All right, I'll tell you, one heck of a show. We knew it would be. We don't have the JFK files yet, do we, producers? Do we? No. Okay. Here's the link at the National Archives. Apparently, the collection is going to be released there. As Roger Stone just told us, there are a lot of other documents the CIA has not given up, so I guess we'll keep hunting, but let's just take W's as they come in, right? Good first steps. And a W for you today, your verse of the day from 1 John. Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. It is not what you say, it is what you do. It is the actions that you take that maketh the man, not the words. There's no shortage of fake content on social media. People buy. You ever seen that, Klein, where people can like at the studio with like the private jet in it, that where like you can go, like influencers can take selfies like they're on a private jet? Yeah, okay, got it. You won't catch us on those. You won't catch us in the studio or in the private jet, ladies and gentlemen. We fly commercial on this show. But Frontier, okay? Yeah, that's right. I bought a bag of peanuts with me. Frontier laughs when I ask them if they have beverage service. That's right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, we don't like. There's so much fakery. Is the point? Like it's a fake world, and with AI, it's getting even worse. So it's more. This verse is more powerful than ever, right? Just your actions, your physical, real world actions, they make you who you are. So make sure that your actions are honorable and are upstanding, and then you yourself can say, you know what? I've done my best. I've been honorable. I've been upstanding today. My actions, not words. Not words. That's why clients say I have low IQ. It's why I'm constantly saying I have low IQ on this show, and that I went to community college. I try as hard as I can. And if you even knew what happens in the production chat, like how much I get roasted by our own team, I demand actually to work at this company. We've done a big spate of new hires. To work at this company, you must be able to roast me. Okay, I demand it. I demand to be roasted. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we just want to say thank you for tuning into this wild, winding show for 2 hours. Boy, I feel like we could do another 2.5. Klein's going, no. Yeah, it's just so crazy. I guess we'll see what happens with these documents. Let's find out. Some little birdies tell me there could be some nuclear secrets in them. So I just want to state that on the record and see if we're right. So we'll see, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see. Please join us. Subscribe to our pages, like, comment, and roll with the chat. Hearts out to the chat. Join the Benny Brigade at BennyJohnson.com if you wish to help us further the cause of truth in this country. Our Frontier flights ain't free. They may be $69, but they ain't free, right? So thank you. And we just want to say we love you. Again, you make this all possible. You won't find a show more thankful for the audience and that vibes more with the chat, the energy in the moment. And so for that, we are deeply grateful. It's your boy, Benny. See ya.
I heard that the show opener wasn't very good. So I just want to clear things up. We do not make memes about the left and the other things because it is easy. We meme them because it is fun.
Where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny shows the storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salt in all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.